The Phillies have two dudes that are throwing gas from the left side out of the starting rotation. Let's talk about it next right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. What's up, everybody, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. Tyler Zulli here, and it is no surprise that when it comes to pitching, especially starting pitching, that righties tend to throw harder than lefties do. Whatever it is, maybe lefties have just fared over the history of baseball a little bit better with dialed back velocity. More times than not, when you hear a starter that's considered one of those junk ballers, more times than not, it's a lefty. And that's just been the case over the course of the history of the game. And it still remains true to this day, but the Phillies are looking to kind of reset that trend a little bit with two guys in their starting rotation who are throwing absolute smoke. Cristopher Sanchez and Jesus Luzardo both were excellent in their starts, and their velocity was to match. Corey Seidman tweeted this yesterday about the Phillies' two lefties, and it kind of jumped off the page a little bit. Jesus Luzardo averaged 96.9 miles per hour with his four-seam fastball in his first start, which was the highest velocity of any left-handed starter in Major League Baseball so far. Cristopher Sanchez, meanwhile, averaged 96.5 miles per hour with his sinker, which is also the highest velocity on any lefty starter so far with that pitch. You know who was number two? Jesus Luzardo, 96 miles an hour flat. So I wanted to go back over the last couple of years and see what it looked like, to see what the kind of territory that these two are in amongst starting pitchers, especially when it came to left-handed starters. So here's the qualification that I used last year. Pitchers to have thrown at least 1,500 pitches last season. And what that does is it kind of eliminates relievers. Now, what I'm trying to focus on is guys that threw a lot of pitches and sustainability of that velocity, because you can come in for 10, 15, 20 pitches and throw 100, 102. Think about Ben Joyce. Think about Emmanuel Clase. Think about Mason Miller. Those guys throw smoke, no doubt about it, but they're doing it in a much smaller sample size. So I wanted to see starters who had length to their starts and threw a lot of pitches this year, or last year for that matter, and see how they fared amongst that group. And so the top four starting pitchers in four-seam fastball velocity were all right-handed pitchers. Then there was Garrett Crochet. He's the first lefty of the group. Now, the only two other starting pitchers last year who were in the top 20 who threw at least 1,500 pitches in terms of hardest four-seam velocity last season were Tarek Skubal, who won the American League Cy Young, and Mackenzie Gore of the Washington Nationals, who the Phillies faced on opening day. It's almost an exclusive list of right-handed pitchers, which continues the trend of what we've seen throughout the course of most of Major League Baseball. So let's take a look into the two Phillies starters, the two lefties, to take a look further at what they've did in their first start. Let's start with Cristopher Sanchez, who made the start on Monday against the Colorado Rockies. I thought he was excellent. He pitched into the sixth. He went 5 1/3, struck out 7, only gave up 4 hits, one of which was the home run, which ended up being the final pitch that he threw on the day, but just 1 earned run and 2 walks. And the sinker velocity for Sanchez was a big topic of conversation in spring training. His velocity has increased each of the last 2 years. He was down at about 93 2 years ago. Last year, closer to the high 94s. This year, again, in the first start, 96. And we saw him touch 97 or 98 throughout the course of spring training. And the question for Sanchez was always going to be, can he do this over a full season? 30, 31, 32 starts, assuming he remains healthy. Is he going to be able to do that on the back of 185, 190, maybe 200 innings pitched over the course of a season? Well, it was pretty obvious, based on what Corey tweeted, that that's exactly what he did in his first start. He threw 10 sinkers at 97 or 98 miles per hour. 21 of his sinkers were somewhere between 96.1 and 96.8. That's 31 sinkers in total. Throughout the game on Monday, he threw 43 sinkers. So 31 of his 43 sinkers were 96.1 miles per hour or harder. Last year, his sinker averaged 94.5, which was good for 35th amongst qualified pitchers who threw those qualified 1,500 pitchers when it comes to sinker velocity. Again, on Monday, number 1 amongst lefties, and up there in the upper echelon throughout the first couple of days of the 2025 season. And so here's one thing that I noted about Cristopher Sanchez on Monday, and I think it's going to be true throughout the whole season. Teams are going to throw as many right-handed hitters as they possibly can against Cristopher Sanchez. And for Sanchez, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because he was good against righties, and he's been good against righties, especially when his changeup is working down and away to those right-handed hitters. But with the added velocity that Sanchez now brings, he's going to have the ability to work up in the zone a little bit more, especially to the right-handed hitters, but to both sides of the plate. Last year, he only threw 18% of his total pitches in the upper three quadrants of the zone or above. But being able to spot 97 or 98, even if it's just infrequently, but just to change eye level, to change approach, to change speeds, is going to make Cristopher Sanchez's arsenal that much better. And when he's throwing 96 to 98 as opposed to 94 to 96, the discrepancy between his fastball or his sinker and his changeup gets even greater. And it just becomes more difficult to pick up out of hand because Cristopher Sanchez does such a good job of tunneling when it comes to that sinker changeup overlay. So he becomes an even more difficult pitcher to hit when it's 97 or 98 up in the zone, and then the changeup where he kind of just pulls the string and it's 86 down and away. Guys are going to go fishing a lot, especially right-handed hitters, and it's just one more piece of Cristopher Sanchez's arsenal that's going to make for what I believe to be an even better season. So we talked about Sanchez. Let's get into Luzardo for just a second. We'll go back to Saturday's game against the Nationals. He gave up 2 earned runs, but he pitched 5 innings, and he struck out 11 hitters. And the thing that I noticed about Jesus Luzardo was that he used all 5 of his pitches pretty effectively in this one and used them at least 12% of the time, the sinker being the least used pitch at 12%. So I'm going to go away from the velocity conversation for just a second to talk about this. Caleb Cotham is a huge proponent of 3 things: velocity, vertical movement, horizontal movement. And you could say, Tyler, that's pitching, right? That's what you're supposed to do, and that's what any good pitching coach will do. But he's a proponent of those 3 things, and I think any Phillies pitcher is kind of expected to have at least 2. Now, Jesus Luzardo's always had a heavy power fastball, and so the velocity's always been there. But he added this offseason in this spring training a sweeper, which gives him that horizontal break, which gives him that second sequencing of those 3 that Caleb Cotham looks for. He used the sweeper as a traditional out pitch, as a traditional swing and miss pitch to left-handed hitters. Now, he's always featured a slider, but the addition of the sweeper allows him to go with that pitch against lefties. He threw the sweeper, again, almost exclusively to lefties in the game against the Nationals. 22 times. He threw the sweeper 19 times to left-handed hitters. And he spun it kind of as that traditional out pitch against the left-handed hitters. He got 7 whiffs on 10 swings and was at 13 called strikes plus whiffs on the 22 pitches, meaning that he either got a called strike or a whiff on 13 of 22 sweepers. Not too bad for a guy that really just featured it for the first time in his career. And then the slider is the one that he's going to use more to righties as kind of a compact, down and in, off the back foot pitch. He wants you to swing over top of it. It's heavy, it's got late break, but it's not a ton of break. It's that gyro slider that we've talked about. And what he uses that for is to set it up off your back foot. He'll probably go fastball up and away to set up that pitch down and in. Get guys to swing over top, make right-handed hitters uncomfortable, feel like it's breaking in on them, even to the point where it feels like they might get hit by it, but they're not going to, and that's the effectiveness of the slider against the righty. So he pairs those 2 pitches, the one against the lefties with a little more horizontal break, with the slider against the righties, which is heavier and kind of has that tight, late breaking gyro action to it, and that's how he's going to continue to become effective. And then when he pounds up in the zone, 96 to 98 with the fastball, and the sinker for that matter, he has the ability, again, to work up, down, in, out, change speeds, change eye levels, throw it for strikes, throw the slider off of guys' back feet, and it just becomes another tool in his arsenal, again, that he's going to use to his advantage. So the Phillies have 2 lefties in their starting rotation that are just going to ramp up their velo as the season goes on, and they've got good second stuff that allows them to become more full pitchers. And I expect Luzardo and Sanchez to help this team continue, as the starting rotation is a staple of this team all season long. Those 2 guys are going to be important pieces to the Phillies' success in 2025.